without further ado, I'll pass you over to Curtis, and as I say, we'll run the Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, or please open your microphone at the end, and we'll do some questions after Curtis's presentation. So I'll let him take it away. Thanks, Curtis.
Excellent, thank you, Mark. So thank you all for joining this webinar today and taking time out of your busy lives and businesses. Thank you, Globe, for Pest Solutions for having us today and allowing me to present. Termite baiting is definitely a passion of mine, that is for sure. So firstly, I'm going to introduce myself. I am Curtis Hugh, and my role is Technical Services Specialist at BASF Australia and New Zealand. I currently hold a pest license with sensitive and high-risk sites, hold a Certificate 3, also current QBCC supervisor's license, and I am a recognised AEPMA field biologist. Part of my current role, I do research development for our BASF products that come through. I also look at other opportunities throughout the market. I help our technical sales team on the ground in their day-to-day dealings with you guys. And part of my role also is our pipeline, BASF pipeline, which started 10 years ago. And I do that on a global level and help bring these products to market for the end user, which is you guys. So I've been in the industry for 28 years. I started as a trainee. I've been a technician, subcontractor, supervisor, state manager, a branch manager for a national company, and I did run and own my own pest control company for a 16-year period. Throughout this pest control company that I owned, I had large commercial contracts, including zoos. We had hundreds of baiting sites, and my passion was termites, and we concentrated on termites. So there's not too many areas that I haven't sort of done in the industry. So moving forward. So assurance in baiting. So, termite baiting is a real sort of art, to be honest. So, but we have made it simple here at BASF. So, baiting addresses construction defects where sometimes chemical treatment zones, it's not possible to put a treatment around because of the site, the land, it's cut into a block, so you can be assured when you're baiting that you are getting a full treatment around a property most of the time, unless there's a zero lot line you just can't get down. But baiting has become a very simple installation process. We've made it very convenient with BASF product Trelona, of course, and simple to use for the end user, which is termite professionals. So, with baiting also, you can gain colony control. It might take a little period of time, but at least that you have got control because you can see how much bait they have consumed. You can actually see the process of the chitin inhibitor causing, structural issues to the termites themselves. And you can see that process happening throughout. So you can get a pretty good indication, idea that you actually have eliminated that colony. Whereas sometimes with chemical treatment zones, that is not possible, probably in most of the cases, to be honest. So baiting also in business creates growth. So, you can, if you have the more baiting systems, the more stations you have in the ground, the more you can grow your business. It becomes like a commercial drop. Just like a commercial property, you're going out continually every month, every 3 months. Baiting is no different. So the more stations you get in the ground, the more often you're going back, which will help revenue, profit, and the growth of your business also. So process with building structures, what issues might arise? There's plenty of issues. We all know that. We've all seen it. We've all had experiences in problems you just can't solve. The termite professional, you do encounter various challenges, and unfortunately, we don't have any say in the building process generally, besides when you're doing pre-construction stuff yourself. But You know, places prior to 1998, you know, they don't have any pre-construction stuff, and we all know that pre-construction materials can break down due to, you know, other people not installing it properly, other people trades coming in behind, you know, cutting sections out, things like that. So, you know, the construction process can be super complex, and cause the pest professional issues. So several trades throughout this process can cause issues as well. Other trades don't know what other trades are doing. If you've done a pre-construction property, ever done like a physical treatment zone installation, you can be rest assured that, you know, if you've done it 100% to your ability, it all looks great, you don't potentially go back there until 12 months. You know, and so many other trades have come back since because it's done at that bottom right-hand slide. It started at that process pretty much, you know. So ultimately, other trades can hinder what you've done, and you have no guarantees as well. So you're dealing with major, you know, defects, particularly through, you know, when they're laying the concrete and things like that. There's so many areas, and this is where baiting can, you know, cover all these issues. So when you're understanding, you know, the building is essential for the pest controller, just having some sort of knowledge. You know, there can be identified, you know, hidden voids, slab issues, bridging. You know, I advise anybody to, like, when you're seeing the construction, if you haven't seen the construction of a slab before, or the start of a building process, do yourself a favour. I used to do it. I'd pull over when I saw a new slab going down, see what they're actually doing, look at the footings, look at the waffle pod, look at then the next process, if you've got one near your local area. Just get yourself a bit sort of knowledgeable on the construction side of things as well, because you need to know that, and certain constructions, you know, will help you choose what sort of system you're going to put around, the termite protection you're going to put around a property. So possible key entry points, there's so many to go through. So, you know, they can go through hollow spaces behind brick veneer walls, cracks in concrete, all seen that, expansion joints. You know, they just come up through the expansion joint. You know, you got pipe penetrations going through horizontally and vertically through entering buildings, voids under the foundation. You got construction debris left in there. As you saw in one of the slides previously, like just sitting there, they've never taken it out, the peg, you know, and termites just track up through that. Along adjacent concrete pours and inside concrete block walls that haven't been core filled properly. So there's so many areas that pest professional needs to sort of consider, and that's where baiting systems come into their own, really. It covers all areas. So the professional considerations, construction type, you know, like if it's an infill slab, you particularly want to put a baiting system around it. You would struggle putting a chemical treatment zone around it unless you're doing all internal areas, and that has its own challenges. When you're drilling internally, you know, you're not going to get to all areas either, because you've got to go through potentially bathrooms, you've got to pull out cupboards, you've got to go through, you know, kitchens, things like that, and it's super expensive as well. So, you know, you've got to consider these things, and potentially a baiting system is going to be the better option. You need to consider termite species, what sort of pressures there, the extent of the infestation, environmental and site factors as well. You know, you might have like bushland surrounding the property. You might be in a, you know, 5-story building in the middle of the city, which, you know, the option might be just to use an above ground station. So there's plenty of considerations that you do need. Client expectations and budget also as well. So if you are going to put a baiting system in, a lot of the time you just need to explain. It could take a little bit longer than, you know, a dusting, a foaming, and a external treated zone, but you will get the results, and you will get long-term results. So you also have to consider compliance and product suitability as well. So why Trelona? Because Trelona's proven. We've proved over the years and years through our research, development, and trials, which we go into, that it actually works. You know, it's been around hundreds of homes in Australia. It's been in the US since 2014, and it actually works. So we know that it's cost effective, and for the homeowner and for the pest control operator as well. The stations are super robust. They are almost unbreakable, to be honest. I've done lots of things with them, like even driving vehicles over the stations. They're made of a tough plastic also, and they're flexible. So, the Trelona system is flexible. We have multiple different options that you can actually sell to your customer and or add to your business. So proven by the test of time. So in Australia, Trelona has been trialled for 12 years. And, 12 years, these trials have been done independently and by BASF ongoing. Even the host today, Mark, had an ex-BASF employee. He's done a lot of those trials also. And those trials, which is part of my job and role today, is up at trial sites up at Townsville and Darwin also. So these, we've had many houses up there in these properties, and Trelona has been around these many houses for 12 years. But also, on top of that, hundreds of sites have been or were installed for trials, particularly around Australia also in that time. And then when now Trelona's come to the market, there's thousands of sites installed around Australia in every state of Australia, besides Tasmania, of course. And we are committed to ongoing testing. So part of my role is continually testing the palatability of our Trelona stations in Townsville and against our competitors also. So I've pretty much covered this, but our trial site up in Townsville is 650 acres, blue water up there. And, we have, like I call it, like a Trelona graveyard. We've dug a trench. I've dug a trench around with Termite, have about 20 plots there where Trelona stations have been put in with dual active cartridges. And those dual active cartridges get checked, pulled out of the ground every year, and then placed directly into a nest to see if those stations are still, the cartridges are still palatable and will kill that actual nest. So we know it's actually happening. And just bear in mind, Townsville the trial site generally gets flooded a lot. It's super hot, humid, has all the worst conditions possible. And that's why Townsville and Darwin were picked as well, because if it works up there, it's pretty much going to work around Australia. But we also in up Townsville will have multiple sites where we have our competitor comparison trials also. So the pair of Trelona ATBS. So novaluron requires 50% less bait to kill a colony. The cartridges contain pure cellulose, like 99.5%, I think it is. And it is registered for all Australian species. And this has been the case since it's come onto the market, selling to the pest professional 5 years ago. It's included Master Termite darwinensis, which other competitors definitely didn't have that on their label prior, and some still don't. So it shows we have confidence in what we're doing. So some of these trials were completed with man trials with Coptotermia nasiformis. They're effective on all. It is effective on all species, and it showed that we needed and required 50% less bait to get colony elimination over competitor standard industry baits like chlorfluoraziron. So Trelona requires less maintenance. So the station is made of highly durable plastic. So what that means is you've got less chance of breaking the stations, breaking components, having to replace components, having, baits exposed to the elements, baits exposed to the homeowner. So there's a lot of advantages because it's such a hard, tough station. It doesn't get affected by UV. It is a 3mm plastic also, and it's strong enough to reduce the risk of like major tree roots trying to get into the actual station itself, which other stations are definitely prone to. And it's designed, the flutes down the side there to, keep as much soil out of the station as possible and the roots as well. So built for speed and consistency, it is a system designed to be consistent amongst technicians. So there's no, obviously messy bait, there's no wastage and no maintenance. So when I ran my company, I had 9 technicians, and we used to have when they're coming in for a meeting, a toolbox meeting, and I'd go around and look at their utes, and in the bottom of their, because all my guys were qualified and, and monitoring stations, when I used the competitor's product, I found that, I would have potentially $500, $600 sitting just going moldy in the bottom of their actual bucket that they used to mix up the bait and put into the station. So, like, it was pretty depressing, to be honest. But, Trelona's designed to, anyone can use it. You don't actually, have to, particularly be experienced to, mix the certain bait to the certain species, or the bait consistency to the certain time of year and things like that. So it's very hard. And even a big company recently, like one of Australia's largest companies, said to me that they've got confidence in it because they know even if their technicians aren't that well trained, it's very hard to mess it up. It's a simple sort of process. So when we talk about flexibility, we talk about flexibility as in, you've got 3 different options, really. You can have 4, but I don't recommend it. You always want a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week baiting system. So you've got active on application, which is your dual cartridge, which has 2 124-gram cartridges in it. Then you have your active monitoring, which is your Canadian aspen timber, which is a hardwood, even though so I got a comment the other day, somebody said it was softwood. It is definitely 100% a hardwood, Canadian aspen. And the reason it's Canadian aspen is because we didn't want to chop down Australian trees. And Canadian aspen actually grows to its adult life in 2 years. And so there are big plantations there. And we know all species, including the pseudotermes, will attack that hardwood. And it's designed to actually go up that ladder pretty much and get into as a ladder and get a lot of termites in there, like that original video, and get straight into that cartridge underneath. So you have that flexibility there as well. That is probably a little bit more of an economic alternative on installation, but you've got to monitor it every 3 months, whereas the active on application, little bit dearer up front potentially because you've got the dual cartridges, but you do have the ability to go every 6 months. Then you have the in-ground concrete stations, which we class as retrofitting. So you can put that in a competitor's station. You can either use active monitoring or your dual cartridge in the competitor's station as well. So it gives you multiple different options. So 2 pre-baited cartridges, as discussed before, 6 monthly inspections. There's no timbers and no mixing of bait. So very simple, very cost effective, simple to use, save on labour based on 6 monthly inspections. So if you're time poor, it is a really, really good option. And there's enough bait there to actually eliminate multiple colonies throughout the actual 6-month period. And in my experience with it, they usually eat the 1 cartridge, particularly in each station, but that's majority of the time. So active monitoring, just discussed this before, obviously your timber, which is Canadian aspen. This timber is designed specifically to fit the station, and I've seen it where, and the trials I've done, the termites get into it and they really get into large numbers in that hollow section of the actual timbers, the way it's designed, and they will climb up it like a ladder and directly enter the cartridge. So you can get really quick, aggressive feeding with this option as well. So, but 3 monthly inspections is more costly to certain businesses. But if you're actually looking at retrofitting, not a bad option. So just go back, sorry. So if you're looking at retrofitting, it's not a bad option because, your customer to another competitor's station, your customer might be used to you on multiple occasions turning up to the job site. Like sometimes you need to go, 8 to 10 times throughout the 12 months. Whereas if you're saying to the customer, we only need to come every 3 months, is probably going to be a little bit more acceptable to them than 6 monthly visits. So going from 10 visits to 2 potentially a year might not suit that customer, and their alarm bells might start ringing. So it's adaptable, obviously, compatible with stage 1 options. We recommend terminal foam, or any other competitor AG can be used as well. Then you can put the stations externally. It's ready to go out of the box for immediate installation. Pretty much you just need to dig a hole or do a concrete core, and away you go. So simple. Adjustable spacings and variable distances, as well. So, I like to say to people, 3 meters apart is approximate. You wouldn't want to go too much further than that, in my opinion. But, you can add extras into the site if for some reason you've got to go a little bit further in high conducive areas, things like that. Or if you're going around the deck, I used to like reducing it to even 1.5 meters or 2 meters. So the more stations you've got on site, the better you're going to be with the baiting system. So it's compatible with Termite as well, and it is actually on the label you can use as a combination treatment. So, if you've got an area where you've got a real problem, you think it's a bit of a brick veneer section, and you've got a real problem with, you think that's where the entry point is, well, why not take a bit of pressure off? Put Trelona right around the outside as a complete system, and then potentially look at doing 5-10 meter area where you think they're getting in. It's just going to take pressure off the house and help you with your customer and help you get control as well. And it's on the label, whereas all other products in combination don't have that on the label, all other baiting systems. So it's definitely going to help your business by doing little things like that. So retrofitting is very simple process. You just put the concrete sleeve in there. And yeah, it couldn't be more simple. You can leave the timbers in if you like. You can take the timbers out. I used to leave them in when I retrofitted mine. There's no harm. The more termites you get encouraged to the station, the better. And then when they dissipate over time, you don't have to put the timbers in as well. So, and you can do that, on all your sites, and it's a cost-effective way to do that, and you will save time and labour, energy, all that in the long run as well. So obviously when doing any baiting system, inspections are a critical service. So, inspections protect both the customer and your business, and they should never be underestimated, to be honest. Like, inspections are crucial. They really are. You get to know all the things about the house. You get to know if there's previous damage. You also get to know more of a construction, a closer look at the construction, the surrounds, things like that, conducive areas. So it will help you make up your mind on what to do and how you're going to treat and protect your customers' properties. So it creates ongoing relationships, leads to better outcomes as well. So I think you should use modern tools. It's always great to, use a thermal imaging camera if you can, use a Termite if you can. But, I used to use boroscopes for invasives a lot. The bug I used to use, obviously moisture meters are essential. You should always use that no matter what, and wet areas particularly, or areas of concern internally. But, they will enhance your reputation also, but they will give you a more thorough inspection and pick up things that you may not pick up. But what you've got to understand is it does not replace doing the basics. I've picked up more things with using a pair of pliers, my eyes, and a torch, and a tapper, a donger, and people might pay out on you when you're doing that, your customer, but you will pick up more with that. But the other things will pick up stuff you might just cannot pick up with your eyes or the tapper. And it's a good look for your customer. It makes you look like a professional, and it might set you apart from other companies as well. So you need to help the client understand the risk and how you plan to mitigate it. When you're doing the inspection, as you're getting around doing that inspection, you should be discussing things with the customer. Don't leave it all to the end. Get them involved. If you see high risk areas, pull them outside, show them the tap that's leaking. They're probably going to be more receptive to that than just giving them a quick 10-minute rundown at the end, or no rundown at all. Just send them a 15-page report. Get them involved. The more you get them involved, the more chance you're going to, be able to sell them a termite treatment, I guess, or protect their property. So, and always think of a termite inspection as an upsell opportunity. It's actually a really, really valuable service. And you should be doing it every 12 months. It's ongoing. You build really good customer rapport, and you could potentially get upsell pest controls off the back of that. You don't know who your customer might be. They might own Arnott's Biscuits, or be the facilities manager there, or work at a theme park or a large commercial corporation that might require your services or get you to quote. So never undersell yourself when you come in, or undersell the inspection part of the process. This is a big thing for me. The termite proposal is essential. I'm a big believer in, this has to be nailed. You want to be an information giver. You don't want to, be this high pressure salesperson. You want to be knowledgeable in your product, and you want to be able to give the customer the right information and why you're going to do what you're going to do. So why does it matter? Its advantages of a strong proposal are that it enhances your reputation as a termite expert. They are relying on you to give them the right outcome for that house and property. It increases conversion rates. So, if you're actually got in that proposal, you are confident of what you're doing. This is how we're going to do it. I don't want to give you multiple options. If the customer feels that you're confident what you're doing or what you're going to propose to them, then they're more likely going to go ahead with you, rather than confusing them and giving them 5 or 6 different options, which they don't care. They just want their house fixed from termites. They want to protect it from termites. And it will give them long-term, protection. That's all they're concerned about. So it differentiates you from your competitors offering vague or generic quotes. Like, there's people out there still giving business cards, like a quote on the back. You don't want to be that company. You want to be that company that is at the top of your game, offering top products, top service, and you're the professional. You tell them what you believe is the best option. And if they don't want that option because it's too expensive, you can then work back from there. But just never lose sight of that you are the professional. So Trelona, it is a simple installation, pretty basic. Even when you're going back to the proposal, there's still people out there measuring with stepping out of property. There's people out there, using measuring tapes. Get a measuring wheel. It's more professional. It's more precise. I've won quotes on just having a measuring wheel, and I was like $800,000 dearer, because one of the guys, customers, he tested me. He said, "How many meters?" And I said, "Oh, 79. He goes, "Mate, you're spot on. The last bloke had 83. He measured it out with his measuring tape. But I got it exactly right, so I won the job. And if you're measuring it out just with your steps, well, you probably won't win the job ever, to be honest. But once again, you're a professional. Trelona stations need to be, where you can, 3 metre intervals apart. So 300 to 600 off the wall. Half a metre for me is preferable, just in case there's any treatment zones internally there. You don't want your baiting systems, whether it's ours or anybody else's, being anywhere near an existing treatment zone, particularly if you don't know the history of that house. You require a 76mm auger, which is a perfect size for the Trelona station to fit in perfectly, really. You can use installation equipment like a hand auger. You can even use a crowbar. You can use an electric power drill with a soil auger, or you can use the Makita brushless earth auger drill. This thing is amazing. I've used a couple just recently. I've been on site with people or companies that use it. you can get stations in that quickly. It is unbelievable. You know, particularly if you've got a really large job, it's going to save in time, energy, physicality, you know, work cover risks, things like that, just by using this machine alone. So a lot of people lose sight that when you're doing Trelona, you should really like dig the hole a little bit 50 mil to 80 mil below. And the reasons for that is, A, it will create a natural sump. You know, so water will go through the station and sit at the bottom of that and dissipate through the soil rather than sit in a station, and create issues for cartridges and things like that, even though they are very robust with water. But also what it does is it allows termites, because they normally travel in the top 300, to potentially enter that sump, which is quite damp, and then work their way into, you know, finding the cellulose or carbon dioxide that the cellulose that's wet is giving out into the soil. So definitely is a little thing that needs to be looked at when installing a station. It's there for a reason, and that's why it's in our manual, installation manual. So in-ground stations, it's always good to remove the grass. A real bugbear of mine is going out to sites and seeing stations stick and proud, things like that. A, they're getting a lot of air in them and would reduce termites potentially getting in there. B, allows for a lot more areas for insects to get into as well. And C, probably the most important thing for the homeowner or a commercial building, that they become a trip hazard. And you just can't have that, and it's unsightly as well. So get them down, stick those fins in. So you've got fins there near that left-hand glove. They are there for a reason. They are there so you move the grass out around that station, dig those fins in tight. So when you actually go back in 3 months, 6 months to inspect those stations, and you go to take off the quite difficult lid to get off, and it's difficult for a reason, to stop, you know, children getting in and things like that, you know, it's going to make, it's not going to twist. And if they start twisting on every, you know, you've got a site with 50 or 100 or a body corporate with 1,000, it's going to become quite annoying. But if you do it right the first time you install it, yeah, it's going to save you a lot of time, energy, and frustration. In-ground concrete stations are required, obviously, through concrete. If you want to keep a continuous treatment around, an 82 millimeter concrete core hole is recommended. Obviously, then, you know, you put a plastic concrete sleeve in, then your Trelona components, whether it's AOA, active on application, or active on shrink, then you have a stainless steel cap, which you can either get in slip resistant or just stainless steel, which Globe would sell for sure as well. So, and another key thing is to tighten those caps. A lot of companies don't tighten them; they become loose, and people can gain access to them, which, you know, is definitely what you don't want. I was walking down the centre of Perth the other day, and I noticed some stations in there with concrete core caps, and I looked at a few of them, and a few of them were looking pretty bad because they hadn't tightened it properly, and they were really wobbling and move. So it wouldn't take much for someone to slip over that, and, you know, cause drama. And they were in the main street of Perth. So obviously installation, like, it's flexible as well. So, you know, not only just going around the outside of the house, I believe, and every company should be doing it, you need to look at putting at least 2 to 3, 4, 5 you know, stations in high conducive areas, like, you know, like gardens with mulch, near a stump, you know, sections where the property might back on and have gum trees and things like that as well. You know, it helps to reduce termite pressure on site, also by doing this and adding a few extras in around the property. Even with that, you know, if the customer doesn't want a complete system around the entire property, you know, if you're doing a termite inspection, you could even sell them 3, 4, 5. You know, I'm a big believer in something is better than nothing, and they're more than likely going to ring your company back if you've installed 3, 4, or 5 stations at their property, if they don't want to do the whole thing. And if they get a problem, then you can install the whole thing. But obviously, always start with doing a continuous complete system, but something's better than nothing. Super versatile. Don't forget areas like gum trees. You put 2 or 3 stations. Like timbers in ground, decks, things like that. The more stations you've got on site, the better control you're going to get with termites. So as a combination with Termite, as we discussed before, it suits, certain constructions like, Mrs. Jones might not want an 82 concrete core hole through her driveway. But now with Termite high efficiency, you could offer to do, particularly with the high pressure device, which Globe sell as well, that, you could do 600 millimeter hole, rotary hammer drill holes through at 600 hole spacing intervals across that driveway and concrete it up to make it look really neat. So they can hardly see it, rather than putting an 82 concrete core. So there's multiple different ways you can do things to satisfy your customer and still get excellent protection. So business acumen. All right, so Trelona ATBS versus Centricon Always Active, which is a direct competitor. Why Trelona? Obviously, the stations are a lot stronger. I can drive my full drive ute over a Trelona station. I can't with an active station. Look at the key, for instance. Our key is super robust. You can't break it. The frustrations come when and I've done all these systems too, so I'm not talking out of school, come with, snapping the plastic keys and things like that. Trelona station, a dual active, actually holds 240 grams versus 150. And BASF has a dedicated team Australia-wide as well to help and support the pest control operator. Obviously, Trelona is easier to inspect as well. And the reasons being is, obviously Trelona, you can open it up, you can take one cartridge out, you can have a look at the other cartridge at the bottom, whereas the disturbance can be quite difficult when you've got to pull out a rod and there's active termites over there, and then replace another Centricon rod. It becomes, the disturbance is probably too much for most termite species, to be honest. So if they haven't had enough hexafluoron ingested, chances are that colony might just be sort of subdued for a little while. Also, Trelona stations are bigger, have bigger footprint, particularly can be a bit easier to find. The central one can be a bit smaller as well. You don't really need a drill to drill it out either, because of all the soil falling into it. Obviously not having another step to the process by using a drill and an auger can reduce your time and energy and definitely technician frustrations as well. Now, versus Xterra, if you're using the original Xterra, Trelona is active from day one, and it's protecting people's property 24/7. So with the Xterra, it's obviously a monitoring system. Then you've got to introduce the bait, and that comes with some real issues, like we discussed before. You've got to mix the bait for certain type of species. You've got to, different times of the year, mix the bait, different levels of consistency as well. But they also have issues with consistency over the years, and I've been a testament to that. So, sometimes it comes out of the factory really, really good, and other times it's not that great. So I'm feeding termites, and that's the whole goal, right? So, very time consuming as well. You've got to pull out timbers. You've got to, the clips break on them as well. You've got to have that bait mixed up. Most technicians over mix. That's why you end up left in every bucket in the technician's ute has bait left in the bottom of it as well. So, all in all, since Trelona's come out, it has taken on the market to make it more consistent, faster, more simple, and more consistent for your termite technicians. And it is a lot cheaper to bait an Xterra system. I crunched the numbers. You're looking at approximately about $85 per station, and the problem is, because it's chlorfluorazole takes so long, particularly up here in southeast Queensland, You know, I had sites there with, you know, Trelona ATBS intermediates, and they actually had, you know, 5 stations completely on the go. Then they'd go back in a month, rebait them, they'd be eaten out again. So, you know, the costs there were extreme. So, and you know, that site, you could not make money out of it. It even wiped out 10 other sites, you know, to make up for it because the cost was so extreme. And that was not a one-off occasion either. So very, very costly. A lot of people don't realise how costly it actually is. So now, obviously, versus Everready, you know, you can see there in the video that the station is just a 2 mil plastic. It's very flimsy. The components are going to break. You know, yeah, its roots are going to get into it again. It has a little clip up the top there, which is quite dicky as well, which will snap and break also. But you know, once again, you're going to have, you know, with Trelona, there's going to be less disturbance, and I think the next video or slide might show that, and less target exposure because, you know, when these things break, you know, people, you know, can be exposed to the product. So, you know, this is 1 month old in my backyard. You know, very difficult to get out because those clips are there, and you know, the Hessian bag is so tightly. I've got like a red soil. It's not clay, but it's a farmer's soil, and it really clung to the Hessian bag. And to be honest, I'd have my doubts whether termites could even breach into that, and that's after 1 month. So, and obviously, you know, it's going to, if you've got termites in there, trying to get that bag out there and replace that is going to disturb them like there's no tomorrow. You know, and they do say to replace each cartridge, you know, when it's decayed. And obviously with Trelona, you don't need CO2 granules as well, you know, so it keeps just another expense that you don't have to require. And our life on the cartridges, minimum 5 years at this stage as well. This is after 3 months of installation in my same backyard. This is station here, the Everready station, completely disintegrated. And that's compared to the Trelona cartridges there, which, you know, haven't even, in Xterior's defense, you know, it did rain constantly late last year here in southeast Queensland. We had a lot of rain, and that's when they're installed. But, you know, going by their label, you'd have to replace every one of those 25 stations around your house because they have decayed. Whereas Trelona will still be solid, particularly if you've got a sump. So there's no issue that they're still palatable and termites will eat them. So I was quite surprised actually how quickly they did disintegrate. Obviously, you know, the keys are robust compared to whatever that is. I already lost the key. You'll see in the next video, I didn't even have their key because I lost it in 2 minutes. You know, I was concerned when I opened up the box directly from the manufacturer as well, through a source of mine, that, you know, the AI is all over the station. So from the minute you get them, you need to have gloves on, and you should do that anyway. But no, that AI is all over the stations, straight out of the box. Whereas, you know, Trelona is clean. There's none of that going on. So maintain efficiency. So Trelona maintenance, AM, active monitoring stations, inspection should be carried out 2 to 3 monthly intervals. AOA, 3 to 6 monthly intervals. And any Trelona bait cartridge with more than 50% consumption should be replaced. And that allows you to get back within that, you know, 3 months to 6 months again. Just a quick video just to show you some of the frustrations. This is my backyard again. There's no sound, unfortunately, which is just music anyway. Like I had a site of Centricon with about 300 stations in it, and I ended up having to do it because my technicians just refused to do it. So I took my son and myself. My son's qualified as well. We used to have to go and do it. One would go in front of the other because it was so time consuming. So. And the key here is too, like if anyone has any difficulties with Trelona at the base, the next cartridge, you need to do this little twist at the bottom and it will come out every single time perfectly. Oop. Move on. All right, so when managing ants, you need to, every time you do a baiting system, whether it's ours or somebody else's, generally speaking, if you're not going out monthly or even every 2 weeks, you need to like look at treating stations for ants, because you don't really want ants inside any baiting station. Ambro we recommend, obviously, and you only need to really apply a small amount around each station. You can use the Clearer PI, and I've done all the testing with the Clearer PI, and Mark on the call has also previously in this role. He has done that in Townsville, so we know it does have no effect because it's a non-repellent on termites consuming the baits and all the timbers. So it's a good way of controlling ants as well. But every visit, every station, I recommend you should treat for ants if possible. So Trelona is logical. It has plenty of business benefits. The more stations you do have in the ground, the more opportunities arise and will grow your business. It is a great way to grow your business, particularly if you're not a big commercial business. This is a way you can get ongoing servicing going, ongoing, visits to your customer. You're keeping in constant contact with them as well. Job gap fillers can provide great service in winter months and quieter months. I used to get a lot of businesses and a lot of sites in the winter months. I used to do, advertising and really give some good, quotations on Trelona sites to get multiple. So that 3 months or 6 months, prior to monitoring. So those actual site visits came in the winter months as well. So it will save you time, energy, and technician frustrations. It's a big key. And one of the nationals have told me that it is saves so much frustration for their technicians that it's not funny. So there's no bait, safer for staff, and no airborne dust and risks. When people are mixing up bait, it goes everywhere. I made all my guys use a P2 dust mask or a respirator when they were actually mixing up dust baits with water, because it'd end up all over your clothes and then back in your truck and things like that. And you do not want to breathe it in your lungs either. So whereas, Trelona obviously doesn't have that, will allow you to save time and do more termite quoting as well. So the more time it saves, the more opportunity you've got to do more work. So part of our team nationally, we've got myself, you've got Scott Morphew, he covers Queensland, North, New South Wales, Northern Territory. You have Andrew Glenn, who covers Western Australia and New Zealand. He's the National Key Accounts Manager, looks after some of the larger companies as well. And then you have Marty Sargent, which is our Technical Sales Specialist in Victoria, New South Wales, South Australia, Tasmania, and Australian Capital Territory. There we go. Any questions? Are you back on, Mark?
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for that, Curtis. That's great. I'll just set that up. Yeah, I'll just double check, see if there's any questions in the chat. I didn't see anything in the Q&A. Double check that. Okay, yeah, I don't think there's nothing in the chat, nothing in the Q&A. You guys should be able to undo your microphones. If not, I'll get Fiona to do that. So if you have any questions, put your hand up, or just yell out if you've got a question or something you want to ask Curtis while he's here. They're usually not this shy.
I was going to say, geez, I didn't do that good a job. I know.
Amazon Pest Control's got the hand up. If they can just switch your mic off and jump in.
I think she's on mute.
Oh yeah, that's us. Yep, you're clear. How you going? Who we talking to?
Hi, I'm Fernando from Amazon Pest Control. I just want to know if on your service you have something similar for above ground stations, because that's mostly what we use. Well, here in Sydney, we have several properties that's what we are using at this stage, and I really like the way that the chemicals that you are selling act. I just want to know if you have something similar that I could use in already installed stations or something similar.
So the question is, that was the question for myself, Mark, was it? Or about above ground stations?
Yeah, above ground stations, yeah.
Unfortunately, at the moment, we don't have an above ground station. So, but watch this space, I guess.
Okay. Can I will be able to, for example, open one of these baits or one of these cartridge and use the chemical inside and
Okay, so on the label it says you can definitely use the cartridges in another container. Like if you have another, but on the label it doesn't say you can manipulate and take out the cartridges.
Okay.
So you can use the cartridges in another systems above ground station, yes.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you.
Yep. And that's currently on the label, Curtis.
Sorry?
That's currently on the label.
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Yeah. That's cool. Someone else got the hand up? DJ?
Yes, I have a question for Curtis. Curtis, if we have the situation where the waterlogging situation and we install this Trelona station, is that waterlogging is do you reckon is that affect the quality of our product?
Depends on how waterlogged, I guess, DJ. If it's completely waterlogged, of course, you would think it would have some effect on potentially drowning the termites, for starters. But as far as the product goes, unless that cartridge has dissipated and moved out of the cartridge, which doesn't seem to happen, they swell up and they stay inside the cartridge, it should have no effect on the product.
So in that situation, how do we realize that we need to change this cartridge or not?
Oh, only if they're looking really bad. Like, even then termites still will be attracted to them. But, that's probably more, they would have to be really black and full of fungi for me to probably replace them. Yeah. But can you move those stations out of those zones particularly?
Yeah. Yes, we can.
Because it's not great to have them in a really wet zone, and obviously you'd want to recommend to your homeowner potentially to try and fix that drainage issue because it's obviously going to be conducive as well.
Right. But if we move that station, then that 3 meter distance, that will that will widen the distance. That is only my.
Can you move them out off the wall a little bit and potentially put 2 or 3 in that area out further, or? Yeah,
that can be done.
Yeah. So anything like that, you don't ever want a station really just sitting in water. Not, termites aren't going to get into it for starters because they're not swimmers. They don't swim. So if anything, it will be detrimental to the station just purely based on it be sitting in constant water all the time. And you just need to move them out of that zone somehow. You're better off having a station that's drier and it does drain out. Difference if they get flooded and then drain, that's fine. But if they're sitting in constant water, that termites aren't going to get into that station. So you're wasting time.
Yeah. No, it wasn't like a constant constant in the water. Only, there was only 3 days. It was like too much of water
fine.
Over there.
As long as it's draining and it drains away, like even when you're baiting termites, and I've had that in the past where you're baiting stations and you get a big storm come through and they get, 2 inches of rain and it floods all the stations. The termites they'll leave prior to that, or they'll get flooded out, and they might not come back to that station until it dries up in 2 or 3 weeks or a month. They might not ever come back to that station because they've either drowned or, you know, gone back to the colony. So, you know, yeah, hopefully that helps.
Yeah, no, all good. Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess any long-term drainage is also going to be part of the strategy to recommend that the customer obviously drains the house better, because you're going to have high risk in those situations as well. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. That's cool. CEK, whoever that is, can unlock their. I don't know if we heard from that already. I'm just looking at the hands that are up. So we had I think it was DJ, we had Amazon, and then I've got CEK.
You're just on mute there, CEK.
There you go.
How you going there, fellas?
Hey, how
Yeah,
we
good,
doing?
thanks.
Who we talking to?
I'm talking to Clay.
Hey, Clay, how you doing, buddy?
Good, mate. Good. Just with the question there before, I'm on the opposite. Where I am out West Queensland, we're dry, very, very dry.
Yep.
Do I tell the client to try keep the sprinkler over it just to keep them a little bit moist, or are they still just really good active, like while they're still really, really dry?
Yeah, really, it's not going to make any difference, because if you're checking them every 3 months or 6 months, you know, if you don't want to be watering them continually and things like that. You know, like termites will be traveling depending on the environmental conditions, really. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, ultimately, if it rains or storms or whatever, you know, they might become moist, but then the termites will be traveling in that ground. Particularly, you going around moistening them, that's not going to probably attract them to them, if that's what you're trying to say. And you know, if anything, if they're constantly watering them, they could potentially disturb them if they are going to potentially get in there as well.
Yeah.
I don't, and you know, if they're watering them, depends on how much you're going to water them. You know, like, you know, if they're going to stand there and water each one once a week, well, it may loosen up the soil around them and make it a little bit more attractive to termites. But now, if they're not in the area, why make it conducive to attract them to the house? To be honest.
No, I know, but like, just because, like you said, the other guy was always wet, and we've had a couple of those where they're you know near a greenhouse and they flood it, and but they're really good drainage, so I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, just more on decline on the really dry side.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to moisten them a little bit.
Are you seeing, Clay, are you seeing those tablets still staying the way they were when they were installed, or are you still seeing enough moisture to kind of swell those tablets slightly?
Yeah, when I check them, they're really dry. Like they're starting to looks like they're starting to like decay, like crack and decay.
From you're saying the cartridges itself.
Okay. Yeah. So some cartridges I do replace because they're so dry, and I keep them for other clients if they're in a not semi-wet, but if they're in town and they're nice green lawn sort of thing, so they do get a bit moist.
Yeah, and over time though, even though you've got dry soil there, over time though, are you seeing the tablets fuse together, or are you just seeing...
really break up, like really start to become like a crumble biscuit.
Okay, in that case, when you're monitoring the stations and there's no termites in there, I'd probably pour some water in there. You know, let them.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
Good. I was hoping you were going to say that, because I have done that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt. It's not going to hinder it whatsoever. But you wouldn't want the owner sort of doing it every day, just constantly for no reason.
Some do ask, but I try to do it. I try to monitor them myself, like you said. I don't want the just in case they do start flooding it with a hose. You know, I don't want doing that.
Yeah, it wouldn't, mate. I don't. To me, and I think Mark would agree, it wouldn't hurt at all. Just filling them up with a bit of water while you're there and taking off. Yeah, it might last for 2 or 3 days, and it'll tighten up the bait in the station as well.
Yep.
Good cartridge.
Good. Thank you.
That's cool. Thanks, Clay.
No good question.
Yeah, question. That's good. I think that's all hands. Clay still got his hand up. I think somebody had 2 hands up earlier on. I don't know how you do that. I need to find out how you do that. That's pretty awesome. 2 hands up at the one time.
Could have been a 2 thumbs up here. Good viewer.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. That's good. I think that's all the questions. I'll just double check the chat and the QA. Make sure we haven't missed anything before we sign off. Chat. Yep. No, that's cool. No, that's all good. I think that's everything. Awesome stuff. Okay, well, thanks to Curtis for spending some time with us this morning. Thanks to you all again. I know we've got a lot of regulars on the call here as well. So thanks to you guys for joining us again, and thanks to everybody who's taken the time to join the webinars. We've got another webinar, I think probably one more for the end of the year. So we've got a November one. Can't actually remember what we're doing in the November one, but we'll post it. We'll post it soon. We'll post it next week. So we'll get that organised. But thanks again. If there's anything we can do on the deals, either contact myself or let the boys know around the traps, or as he can order online. If there's anything else we can do for you, so there's some really good deals getting into the season. We're starting to see things heat up as well. So we're starting to get super busy. All the branches are firing. So yeah, but if you want to take advantage of those deals, please speak to the boys. And again, thanks Curtis for today, and
No problem. Thanks for having me.
We'll finish up. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Curtis. Thanks, Mark.
See you all. Have a lovely day.